Us on the phone right now is Congressman Ted Deutch, whose district includes parts of Broward County and also Palm Beach County, and he joins us now. First of all, Congressman, how did you and your family make out? Everybody okay?
We're doing okay, thanks.
Good.
Like probably everyone else in South Florida, we do part of the day going between the safe room, which is a big walk-in closet, and the rest of the house to avoid the tornadoes. But we did okay. I hope everyone managed to do okay.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let's talk about, when we spoke with you yesterday, we discussed a little bit about how you can work and sort of get the cooperation with the federal government in order to help people in your district and around South Florida. And I'm just wondering if you have any update for us. Have you heard anything about the kinds of services, the kinds of grants that might be available to folks who have suffered losses in this storm?
Sure, and there's good news and bad news, Rick. The good news is that the governor put in a request to FEMA that all 67 counties be approved both for public assistance, which means that the local governments will get help from FEMA, and for individual assistance so that people who have been impacted can turn to FEMA. The good news is that all 67 were approved for public assistance. The bad news is, and the really frustrating news at this moment, is that FEMA approved 9 counties for individual assistance, but they did not approve Broward. They did not approve Palm Beach County. They started at Dade and then worked their way up the West Coast. That was done based on forecasts, but Rick, as I've told FEMA multiple times today, and as I told the White House earlier this evening, every single forecast, even after the cone shifted, called for hurricane force gusts and winds where we are in Broward and in Palm Beach, and a lot of water. So people who have been impacted by this need to be able to turn to FEMA. They should expect to be able to. We are pushing FEMA as hard as possible to get those approvals in place early this week.
I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on what you're saying here, and that is that
Sure.
FEMA has not made Broward or Palm Beach County, for that matter, residents. We're talking not about the businesses, but residents in those counties eligible for individual assistance, which on a practical level means what?
Well, on a practical level, it means that people, FEMA has a whole process. When people have been impacted by a storm, they look at the insurance they had, they look at what might be available to them, and they have grants, they have loans, there are other sorts of programs that they can tap into to help people who have incurred significant damage. But at this point, they have said that Broward County residents do not qualify for those because the county has not, at least as of today, been confirmed to have sustained the damage necessary for FEMA to come in. It's crazy. It makes no sense. And that's what I told FEMA, and that's what I told the White House. And hopefully by tomorrow, by working with the state and Broward County and Palm Beach County, they'll be able to certify those counties. But for now, they're not yet certified.
Wow.
Okay, Congressman Shabazi, if I could just jump in here and ask you a question, too. I know this situation might change. I know you're working very hard on it. What should people in Broward County do once things settle down, they're able to go home and assess the damage? And if they do have damage, what steps do they take?
Well, floridadisaster.org is a website that has lots of good information from the state. They should take a look at the FEMA website. They should go through the process of determining what might be available to them through FEMA, and so that they can get in line and start processing an application even as we work to push FEMA to approve Broward County and its residents for that assistance. So they should pursue all of the options, both at the state level through floridadisaster.org and through FEMA, and we're going to work to make sure that FEMA is there to do what they need to.
What kind of steps should people take, anticipating that they will eventually be able to apply for this assistance? Talking about sort of gathering documents, taking pictures of some of the storm damage. What else would you advise people to do?
Well, I would, first of all, it's really important that everybody makes sure that whatever damage that they sustain, that they keep themselves safe. Just the same advice we've been giving people all throughout this storm applies even more when people start coming out and seeing what's happened and being careful about downed trees and power lines and things like that. So that's number one. But they should begin the process. They should go to the FEMA website, take a look at what's available, and start following the steps. Even though FEMA has not yet approved Broward County residents, I'm confident that when they have an opportunity to realize the damage that Broward County residents have incurred, just as with residents in Miami-Dade County, that they're going to come through. So people should start the process of assessing the damage, documenting the damage, and submitting the damage reports to FEMA.
So basically operating under the assumption that FEMA will come around, correct?
Rudy, that's exactly right. That's what they should do. And we're going to continue to push to make sure that FEMA does do the right thing.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you, I know it's very early, and I know that people haven't even had safe enough conditions to go out and assess the damage, but do you have any ballpark idea of how much damage we're talking about with a quantifiable dollar amount?
I don't know. I couldn't begin to guess. I know, and you've been reporting on this too, I know that all of the municipalities in Broward, and I know Dade County does this and Palm Beach County does this, but they'll be sending out teams to assess the damage, to work with their local communities. It's way too soon to know how significant the damage is. It's just a question of making sure that everyone is taking the steps necessary to put themselves in position to start addressing that damage and putting their lives back on the right path after this storm.
Let's look ahead, Congressman, to the next few days here. Maybe let's just look out 1 week, ideally, and give us a sense of where you think, what the progress that you think can be made between now and next week in terms of helping to get Broward County, South Florida in general, back on its feet.
Well, there's been an enormous amount of preparation at the county level in consultation with the state and federal government and the local governments to prepare for what happens after the storm. So I think you'll see the local governments do their job. The effort that the United Way of Broward, together with the Jewish Federation of Broward and the Broward Community Foundation, have put together Broward Cares. .org, which is a website where people can contribute to help their neighbors. I think the volunteer community will come together to play an important role, so that a week from now, my hope is that we'll be back on our feet and on our way to doing all the things that we in Florida are used to doing, recognizing that our friends on the West Coast are probably going to need, once we're up and running, are probably going to need some of our assistance as well.
Have you had any contact with your colleagues on the West Coast?
I've texted with some of my colleagues from the West Coast. I've not heard much since the storm has really hit. And tomorrow I'll look forward to being in closer contact with them and figuring out just how bad the damage is.
We certainly are thinking about them. I think it's important for people to get a sense of what you're able to do as a legislator, as an elected official here in South Florida, in terms of dealing with the federal government. You say you've been in contact with the White House, you've been in contact with FEMA, you've voiced your frustrations. Can you take us behind the scenes of those phone calls and just give us a sense of the back and forth and the kinds of discussions you've had?
Yeah, sure. When we heard that Broward wasn't included on the list of counties whose residents could apply for individual assistance, we tried to figure out why. So I spoke with FEMA, and first there was a question about whether the governor had sought approval for Broward County. So I talked to officials in the governor's office who confirmed that they did. Then I spoke to FEMA again. Then I spoke to my contact in the White House and explained why I thought the White House should do the right thing tonight, not wait for tomorrow, not wait for more reports to come in, but to acknowledge the damage and to step in right now and make sure that Broward is on the list. Then I went back to FEMA, who told me about the way their process works. And frankly, I didn't need to hear about the way the process goes. I know that the Broward officials are aware of it. that they'll do everything that they're supposed to, but they shouldn't have to jump through additional hoops when we knew that this damage was going to come anyway. That's the point that I made to everyone that I talked to, both in the White House, at FEMA, and in the governor's office.
Well, I'm glad that you, even elected officials get frustrated with bureaucratic red tape.
No question about that. This is one where it shouldn't require multiple phone calls. It shouldn't require efforts on my part or anyone else. I just think, frankly, FEMA got it wrong when they looked at a forecast map and decided that Broward and Palm Beach County weren't going to receive damage, and so they'd leave them off until later. I just think they made a mistake, and I think they need to fix that mistake.
Well, we appreciate you looking out for your constituents, trying to get FEMA to change its mind on that. And we would love to talk to you again, possibly tomorrow, when you have an update on whether or not that change has been made that would allow residents to be eligible for individual assistance from FEMA. Right now, Broward and Palm Beach not on the list of counties where individuals are able to apply for that help. Congressman Ted Deutch. Congressman, thanks so much, and I'm glad that you and your family made out okay.
Thanks very much, and I'll look forward to speaking with you again soon. Thanks, you guys.